Happy New Year's, guys. Welcome to Kelowna Cell Repair. My name is Jamie, and today we are working on a iPad Air that will not charge. We're going to be replacing the charging port, which is soldered onto the main board. I'm going to take you under the microscope and show you how it's done. Okay guys, so we're going to start by desoldering this charging port here so that we can get the new one on. I'm not going to really talk too much in this video. We're just going to go ahead and get this done here as quickly as possible. This is for a customer unit and we are open today, so yeah, I don't really have a huge amount of time to be able to go too much in depth with this, but you guys are going to get the idea of what I'm doing here and see how we replace this. So just going to add in some low melt solder. Really doesn't have to be anything too special or pretty. We're just making sure that we add some lower melting solder to the existing charge port, and that's just gonna make our lives a little bit easier to remove this guy. Okay, so we got some low melt solder on there. And now we're going to break out the rework gun, and we're going at about 190 degrees Celsius here. So a combination of this and the soldering iron, we're just going to tin all these pads, and this is going to start to melt the solder through the old charging port. I'm just dragging that nice big blob of solder around just to make sure that every single one of these pins has a nice amount of low melt solder in there. And we'll just go ahead and get rid of that. So now we're going to keep on heating this guy, and we're going to break out some tweezers to remove it. And that guy was nice and melted to take off the old port without any issue. Gonna add just a little bit more flux, and we're gonna tin all the pads with some fresh solder and clean all this up. Okay, we got our prep work done. I'm just going to clean this with a little bit of alcohol here to get it ready for the new charging port. Nice and clean. Gonna add just a tiny bit of flux here. Now, when we're adding more flux to the base here before we put the new charging port on, we don't really want a whole lot of flux in there. We don't want it to interfere with our new charging port when we're soldering it on here. We just want a nice, even, thin amount of flux just to make a nice, good connection. If we put too much on there, it's going to make it really hard to solder on the new part, just because every single one of these pins has to make a firm connection. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab the new part here, and we'll go and get it soldered on. Okay, I have the part here, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit and try and show you guys what we have here. We have the brand spanking new charging port. And what we need to do is line this guy up here. And we're just going to go ahead and get one of these points tacked down just so that our charging port's not going to move anywhere. Just like that. Now we can add some nice flux on top here. And we're just going to go through individually one by one and solder each one of those pins. Just a little bit too much solder there. Okay, I got a nice amount of solder on all of those pins. Now what I like to do, just to make sure that we have a nice firm connection, is I like to take a flat tool here and apply some pressure just while I go over those pins just one more time. And the reason for this is I just want to make sure that there's no gaps between the actual ribbon cable itself and the solder connections. So just with pressure here with my flat tool, I'm just touching up each one of those pins and making sure that it's nice and solid. Nice little bit of movement there. That particular pin wasn't quite down the whole way, and that's why I like to do this, just to be sure that these connections are solid.
Kelowna Cell Repair. We are, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. No problem. See you then.
And I would say that's looking pretty good to me. I'm going to give it another quick clean up here with some alcohol, and that should be job done. What I am going to do is I'm going to test out the voltage here with a multimeter, just to make sure that this is getting the right amount of voltage before we put it all back together. Just because this is a little bit of a pain in the butt to remove the logic boards from an iPad. It is quite an in-depth repair, so let's give this guy a nice little clean. And I'm just seeing one little solder joint there that I'm not the happiest with. I just want to touch this guy up a little bit more. Add a tiny little bit of flux here. That's looking pretty good. So you guys aren't going to be able to see this on the camera, but what I'm actually doing right now is I'm plugging a lightning cable into the new port, and I'm using my multimeter here to measure the voltage on the main power rail. We want to make sure that we're getting around 5 volts on that main power rail, otherwise this device is not going to charge. So I'm touching this with my probe and just having a look at my multimeter here, and we are reading 5.155. So that's just above 5 volts. That is going to be a fully functioning charging port. So we're going to get this device reassembled, and I will come back to you guys with a nice charging icon showing once we have the device reassembled. Okay guys, we're back. I have the iPad here somewhat reassembled. We don't have the screen on there or anything, we just have the LCD just for display. This is kind of a moment of truth right now. Just going to plug in a lightning cable here, and what we should see on the screen is a nice display of charging. Just get that guy plugged in nice and firmly. And there is our charging icon that we're looking for. So yeah, that is a perfectly working charging port repair on an iPad Air. And thanks for coming to watch the video today, guys. I do appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Thanks.